Hello, it's Paul Green from the business community doing another one of our Spotlight on interviews where we delve into the business journey of a willing victim, if you will. And today I'm joined by Simon Philp by Tech Fire and Security. Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Paul.
So before we kick off and find out what got you to where you are today, do you just want to introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Simon Philp, and I'm the managing director of Tech Fire and Security. So our company basically provides security and fire systems to keep people's premises and themselves safe and secure, and also compliant.
Okay, excellent. So, how did you get to where you are today, Simon? What was the journey that brought you into the fire and security world?
Wow. Yeah, it certainly is a journey. Basically, I got into security originally back in it was 1988. Fresh out of school, didn't really know what to do with myself. Saw an apprenticeship role come up for security, didn't know what it was. Went along, got the job. I loved it to start off with. I was working on a building site, load of chaps, and yeah, I just kind of thrived on it. My enthusiasm obviously did me well because within 8-9 months, they put me in a vehicle and I was out doing the job on my own. So it was a good start, really.
Excellent. Baptism by fire, almost, pun intended.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the company today. Sort of like how big are you, and what are your sort of ambitions and hopes for the company?
Okay, so the business has been going 10 years now. We celebrated our 10th year in business this year, which is a good milestone. Basically, I've probably gone on a similar journey to most people. Got to, as I say, working through different companies in fire and security. Got to the point where, yeah, I'm going to sack the boss and give this a go on my own, which has sort of led us to where we are now. So there's 6 people in the company. We've got our own premises in Marston Mortain. Our sectors that we work in are educational and commercial. And we've steadily sort of built the business, probably around about 10-15% a year, year on year. And we're continuing with that over the next 3 to 6 years, continually just growing and adapting to other areas and diversifying clients, and also diversify some more of the services that we're offering.
Okay. I know it's at least one business book behind you. I'm assuming there's probably a few more there.
There's a few.
Yeah. So are you an avid reader, and do you find sort of business books useful for you? If they helped on your business journey, would you say?
Absolutely been fundamental to it. But what I will say is, however, as I say, when I first started in business, it was literally that reaction of sack the boss, I'm going to go and do it on my own, which was it was the start of my journey. But basically, I started a business back then as a technician, and it's something that's brought up in a book called The E-Myth Revisited. Unfortunately, I didn't read that till I was in business for about 6 years, and kind of realised then, I thought, oh, hang on a second, this is why things are as they are. And to be honest, it was probably around 4 years ago that I really started to delve into personal development. And it's from that point there that the business has really started to start to grow, and to allow me to think of the possibilities of where I can sort of take things.
Okay, so outside of the E-Myth, were there any other particular books that you found really useful for that personal development that helped you grow?
I've read everything. I think some of the old classics, some of the best, like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. if you read that, it's got the fundamentals in there, which a lot of the newer books sort of draw upon, i.e. having a group around you, advisors, mentors, and all that type of thing, visualizing what it is that you want to do and what you want to achieve. All those things are in some of them older books, but there's not a lot that I haven't read, to be honest, because I kind of one book leads on to another, and I'm a type of person that I'm halfway through a book and I've already got the next one in order. So it's a bit of an obsession.
Yeah. Well, I was a bit of a heathen up until a few years ago. So I bought these business books, but you sort of pick them up, you start reading them, and then you put them down and never pick them back up again. So I'm now a member of a regular business book club. So it sort of forces me, if nothing else, to read at least one book a month, because obviously we review it each month, and that's been really useful, because sometimes what I've found, it's not just your experience of reading the book, it's the conversation that other people have, the different things they take from it.
Yes.
Some people hate certain books, whilst other people love the same book. So it's that whole sort of a different perspective of the same book that people have read. So I find that quite useful, just to engage in that conversation, as opposed to just reading it, just alone to yourself and absorbing whatever you take in from that.
That's right. I also think I must admit, when I first started reading some business books, I was I kind of did put them down for a while, because they were asking a lot of questions of myself. And making me face up to some sort of harsh realities. So therefore, you kind of read them and then think, no, come on, and then you pick them back up and then go through a process. But yeah, it just you've got to keep educating yourself. As I say, I started off, as a technician, and now, as I say, we've got a business with 6 people in it. And there's lots of other things and responsibilities that come with that, and you have to learn and adapt. And you can read as many books as you like, but you'll always keep learning. Keep learning.
Absolutely. So you've probably read Simon Sinek's Find Your Why. I think that's what it's called. So what would you say is your why? What sort of motivates you from day to day and keeps you fighting the good fight?
I think behind everything is that I like to help people. I like to solve problems, which is probably coming from my technical background. But for the solving problems and just helping people, so providing service, and and doing things right, doing things in the correct way. That's a bit of an old school attitude there. And yeah, I've got dreams for where I'd like to take the business, but those have adapted over time, because again, I'd look at maybe whereas some limiting beliefs have come in and sort of made me think a bit smaller than what I should have done. And then you kind of think, no, why am I limiting myself to just thinking of a business with 2 or 3 people in it? And then when you get to like 6, you think, well, why stop here? Why not think even further ahead? So it's just a lifelong journey. But behind it all, my why really is just I love to help people.
Okay. It just reminds you saying that of overcoming your limiting beliefs. The recent book that I just read was the 10x rule or something by Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've ever read that. It's a bit controversial in some ways in terms of where he comes from, but it's basically dream 10 times bigger than you normally would, and that will have you achieve more, because and that sort of made sense. So yeah, absolutely. It probably is sort of the world potentially is your oyster, isn't it? If you see it that way. So there's obviously people out there that do things similar to you in the fire and security world, Simon. What would you say distinguishes you from your competitors?
Yeah, it's one of those businesses. I think there's a lot of people out there doing fire and security. I think we always do our best to try and educate our client. And educate can come across sometimes as being maybe a bit patronizing, but when it comes to fire safety, it's about ensuring that the client's compliant. So there is a form of education to it, and obviously we number one, we have to cover our own selves to make sure that we've done what we've done, but it's ensuring that, look, if you've got a building and you've got visitors, staff and everything, people coming in there, that your systems and your fire safety within there is correct and compliant.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the worst things you've seen on your business journey when you've been into businesses that might not be compliant? Have there been any sort of like horror stories there?
Yeah, there's one or two I probably couldn't mention, to be honest. But a classic will be with fire is sometimes people not understanding about where the responsibility lies. Someone on a site is the responsible person. So therefore, what you'll get, maybe a good example is you might go into a building and you find that they've not had their fire extinguishers checked or serviced for 2 or 3 years, and the excuse will be along the lines of, oh well, we haven't got a site manager, so we just haven't done it. Unfortunately, that's not a good enough excuse, and so therefore at that point is where you then become advisory and just say, look, you can't just ignore it and use that as an excuse. You've got members of the public in here, staff, and so on and so forth. You still need to remain compliant, and then it's just trying to steer them and get them back on track again. But that is a very mild case in terms of some of the things that I've seen. But really, what it is 99% of people don't do anything. They don't purposely avoid doing things correctly. It's just purely that they just actually don't know what is right, and if they're doing something wrong, and that's where we come in, just to try and get them back on track again.
Yeah. So for a new prospect, then, how do you go about working with somebody to identify those risks? Do you do like a fire assessment and security assessment? Is that how you work?
Yeah, basically everything, when it comes to fire, everything starts with a fire risk assessment. That will tell you what you need within that building, and will basically tell you what you've got to do to protect your staff, the building, because you're protecting life first, property second. And it's just so a lot of the time we'll get asked, someone will say, oh, what do you think I need in here? And I just say, well, have you got your fire risk assessment? Because that's where we need to start. And if they haven't, then that's normally where I'd point them. Let's get a fire risk assessment done, because that's the legal document that we're going to work to get you and make sure that you're then compliant.
Okay. And with, obviously, as we're recording this, we've just come out of a lockdown, and we've still got the pandemic going on and affecting people, and that's caused a lot of people to remote work and work from home. Are the things that people that work from home should now be considering more than they would just through living at their home in terms of fire and security?
I suppose really you're looking at that then at more of on a maybe a domestic level, which we don't generally sort of get involved with. But the thing is that what you could say is, okay, look, if you've been working at home for a year and you've got an office building, that's not to say that still doesn't need the fire alarm and everything else checking within there, because you could find, if the worst happened, or whether it be your security system, that your insurance company might not be willing to pay out if you've not had it regularly serviced. So it's still, these things still need to be kept up to date.
And are the fines of consequences of businesses not being compliant quite hefty?
In severe cases, you're going to prison. And it's as simple as that. It gets highlighted every now and again. Normally landlords who just ignore the warnings and rules. and basically, if they're not interested in a tenant, they're more interested in, they're happy to take a rental income, but not actually comply with the law, then they can end up with a hefty fine or prison.
Yeah, because it's putting lives at risk, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Absolutely.
So do you have an ideal sort of customer for you, Simon, that you look to work with?
We kind of have a bit of a split. So we work a lot in schools throughout Bedfordshire, MK area. We look after, I think we're around about 55 to 60 schools that we look after. So we provide all the services into them. But small commercial buildings are normally are kind of what we like, because we do more on the servicing and maintenance side than we do on the actual sort of big installations. So we're quite happy to come along after an install's been done and then carry on the ongoing maintenance.
Okay. And how do you find new clients, or how do they find you?
Good question. It's some of them come through from the phone rings off some Google searches, which we've been sort of trying to work on recently. We've had generally, 90% of the work's coming from referral. We do get a lot of existing client. Our existing clients are ongoing, so they're constantly spending. If you can imagine, the schools, they're always upgrading, adding new parts to alterations. So we get a lot from that. We've explored some new avenues this year. So we've had some sort of paper publications that have gone out, which has basically raised some awareness and led to some picking up one or two new clients, which has been really good. And also working with a marketing expert, part of the BuzzCom group, actually, who's helping us put a strategy together.
Okay.
Going back on some of the going back a bit old school, some direct mailing, doing some of the things. Look, we're all online, but sometimes it's nice to have a letter appear on the desk.
Yeah. I think direct mailing has come back in certainly in recent months, because there are, with people not being easily accessible over the last 18 months, then a bit of lumpy mail coming through is probably a nice thing to sort of like see now. So yeah, I see you also had some articles in one of the local magazines around here, All Things Business. I think you were in there a few times.
Yeah, we did 4. We went into All Things Business 4 times. One of them really, again, because we moved into our own office premises the back end of last year, and we just kind of wanted to raise a bit of awareness about the about tech. And again, going in that magazine, it was ideal because we had a backstory, because we had some help with moving into our new premises, going through the growth curve program run by STEMLEP. So we had a nice article and story about that, and then also our 10-year anniversary was a good opportunity, and it was that publication that led us onto picking up two new commercial clients. So it was a good win, to be honest. Yeah.
Good one. So obviously we touched on the pandemic, which for most businesses would have been their biggest challenge over the last sort of 18, 20 months. Outside of that, Simon, on your business journey, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you have come across?
The biggest challenge is definitely technicians, basically trying to procure technicians in the fire and security. They're quite hard to come by.
Oh, okay. Well, is there a shortage of those, do you think, in the UK?
Yeah, there has been for a long time. Bit of a shortage. I think is a bit of a geographical one. There's a lot of one-man band companies around the sort of Bedfordshire area, which has taken away a lot of good technicians. They've gone and branched out on their own, which is great. But also there's a bit of lack of interest at a college level. for anyone maybe looking at it as a viable career choice, or maybe just not aware of it. You know, I recently sent some stuff to a college to sort of online to help some sixth formers and that, and it was really just to try and raise some awareness around our industry, and also just to make them aware that through the pandemic, you know, we kept going throughout. You know, we was very fortunate; we wasn't affected, so we managed to just keep going. And you know, it's kept me going for the last 35 years without any. You know, I've never stopped working, so it's still a good industry to get into.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those industries that's not going to be replaced by a robot or anything, is it? It's pretty much going to be there forever, I would perceive.
I'd imagine somewhere down the road it probably will be, but I don't think you know, when you think about technology and how things adapt, you know, you could look at many examples and think, oh, would that have ever been replaced by a robot? At some point, it'll all become automated. But you know, but then there's the opportunities there for younger people coming through to design those things or be involved in those things that do, you know, the job I do now in terms, or the job on the ground as a technician, is completely different to when I started, you know, and for the better, I will add. So it's constantly evolving. So new people coming in with new ideas can only really be encouraged, to be honest.
Yeah. And what's the exit plan for you, Simon? Do you have a sort of like plan about where you want to end the business and how you want to move forward from that?
Yeah, I'd like to get to the point where I can sort of happily achieve my goals and you know, move on. I'm quite I don't know, maybe I'm slightly different. All the people who work with me have all got shares within the business, because I just sort of kind of how I like to do things. So they're on the journey with me, and I try and keep it all open and transparent. But yeah, I've got an exit point in mind, and I have been in this industry for a long time, and although I've started my own business, I still feel that I've not necessarily stretched myself enough. So what I would like to do is, when I come to the end of the tech, fire and security journey, is to then go into a different field and then really start to test myself a bit more.
Oh, okay. So there's new challenges ahead then.
Yeah, I'm really interested in, I'm like an NLP practitioner, so I've been all through that process. Again, I like personal development. I'm interested in psychology and how the brain works. More so trying to figuring out how mind works. Really. But I'm really interested in that area, and that's something I'd like to develop more in the future.
Okay, and have you found like having that skill and having that trait has been useful in you know, growing the company and working with your colleagues?
Yeah, it's absolutely fundamental in doing that. The way I think about things now is completely different to how I would have 5 years ago. How I see other people is different. You know, it's just that thing of understanding other people. There's a book called The Chimp Paradox. A lot of people would have read that.
Yeah,
it just explains, so it explains the way that you think, but also makes you understand how other people are maybe thinking as well, and then understanding why they do things the way they do, and for you to then kind of you know, understand that a bit better rather than getting kind of annoyed with it.
Yeah.
To be honest, so yeah.
Yeah, that was on my book club a couple of months ago. I think I seem to remember. So within the last 3 months, anyway. So you kindly said you're going to sort of share a few top tips from the world of fire and security. So I'm just going to put you in solo mode for a while and just got to give you the floor, and hopefully sort of be back in a 2 or 3 minutes time. So the floor is yours, Simon.
Okay, so in terms of in terms of we're looking at fire systems or fire in general, really the main thing is understanding that if you run a business, or you're part of a business, or any commercial property or premises, that someone within there is a responsible person, and it's just ensuring that on a day-to-day basis, that's kept on top of, to ensure that you remain compliant, looking after the staff, visitors, or anyone else who comes in contact with the building. And that's where you'd get some company like Tech involved, because we can help you with that. Not everybody has to know everything. That's where we come in. We can help with that. Really, that's it. With fire and security, there's many things you can talk about. My thing really is more about in terms of running a business. So top tips for looking at your business overall is, again, probably looking at some books that you can read, educate yourself. Don't accept things as they are. Look at different ways of working. Get a mentor. Look for advice. Probably a top tip is get a mentor. That's what I'd say. Biggest tip: get a mentor. Ask another business owner who's further ahead on their journey. They'll always be happy to answer any of your questions. Don't be afraid to ask. I've spoken to business owners in the past, and in 5 minutes, kind of just learned so much, and actually come away thinking, why didn't I know all this stuff? Why don't I know it? Because you can then go on and apply that. Probably another good tip is don't be afraid to get things wrong. You know, I think we're taught from quite an early age about failure. Failure is just an opportunity to learn, to grow. So yeah, fail, get things wrong. That's how you learn. And in a nutshell, they're probably my biggest tips in terms of business.
Okay. Thanks for that. Sorry about that noise in the background. Just switch that off so it doesn't happen again. Yeah, I would say that you know, having a mentor, coach, whatever, or a sort of like virtual book or a board of trusted advisors is quite useful for any business. And I think, yeah, having the ability to ask for help and put it out there. I sometimes bring together a sort of 6 to 8 people just to have like a little bit of a brainstorming session about the issues I'm facing. Because, you know, no one individual knows all the answers at the end of the day, and to have other people that are outside of your business just to come and give you ideas that you might have not even thought about is really valuable. And as you say, you know, sometimes, yes, they're paid for services, but often as not, you can find someone, in my case with this, getting this like little virtual board together, if you want to call it that, you know, 90 minutes of their time, buy them a drink, give them some nibbles, and they're usually quite happy to get involved. So from that point of view, you know, you can find people out there that are willing to support you without necessarily invoices exchanging hands.
Yeah, and also maybe you might be on a cliff edge of basically falling into a trap that someone else you speak to is already fallen into that trap, and that they'll say, well, hang on, just you know, try and avoid this, and they'll give you a different perspective on it. And you know, you don't have to take that advice, but it always helps to, you know, put things into the pot and listen. And you know, if you look at someone and they've achieved what you're trying to achieve, then surely they're worth seeking some advice from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I normally ask to wrap these things up, what is your one top tip for business? But I think you've given us 3 or 4 already from that point of view. So let me ask you another question then. You know, because often in the books I've read and the people that I work with, the people I meet, and myself to an extent, people have this limiting belief, don't they? That there's always something that seems to be an internal dialogue that is preventing people from, being great. And it's probably why a lot of businesses stay at a certain level, because of that limiting belief. So is there anything in terms of your experience and your knowledge that works for you, or a number of things that might work for you to overcome that internal dialogue, that limiting belief that we had? Is there anything you've got to say on that?
I think really it's just chipping away at it a bit at a time. It does take a bit of doing to sort of chip away at the limiting beliefs. But hey, you can look at anybody in business. They've got pretty much everything. They've got everything that you've got. There's nothing different about a person. A human being is a human being. It's just like when you look at when the mile was broken under 4 minutes, and then everyone after that subsequently starts then under 4 minutes. What we're down to 3.5 or under that now. So it's just once you've it's basically seeing the possibilities and then and thinking, well, why not, and what if, as opposed to just looking at it from a negative point of view. But it's just something that is kind of drummed into us young. It's drummed into us by our parents, by teachers, and so on and so forth. And there's a saying, which is an awful saying, about a leopard can't change its spots, and that's probably one of the worst sayings ever, because a leopard can change its spots, but it's down to the individual to do it. You can't necessarily change somebody else, but if that individual wants to change, then you can certainly help them. And anybody can change at any moment in time and do something either different or better than what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Your ordeal is over now, Simon. So thank you for your time this morning. So I'll end the broadcast there.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much.